everybody. I'm Victoria Simmons with this week's edition of the Georgia Post Review. And this week we're going to do something a little bit different, so you'll get to know at least one of our employees a little bit better. But my co-host this week is Christy Watkins. Thank you, Christy. And our guest this week is going to be one of our employees, Linda Reynolds. Thank you for being here, Linda. Linda was in the Peace Corps, and she's going to talk to us about that experience in the Peace Corps. So, Linda, tell us exactly, for those people who might not know, what exactly is the Peace Corps?
Well, it's actually a governmental program that was established in 1961 by President John F. Kennedy. The Peace Corps Act was approved in September of 1961. It was officially established in March of 1961. And so far, year to date, or at least through 2017, more than 230,000 Americans have served overseas in the United States Peace Corps. To date, we have served over 141 countries around the world. And this is not a situation where the Peace Corps just sends people. This is a situation where other governments invite the Peace Corps to come into their countries and do things like teach. About 60% of Peace Corps volunteers teach English as a foreign language. Other people that are in the Peace Corps do things like youth and development, community service, community development, business development, agriculture, healthcare. It goes all over the map, but teaching English as a foreign language is a very big one. For instance, China will only have teaching English as a foreign language volunteers. They don't want any business or community development volunteers or youth development volunteers because their culture says we're going to do it our way. And that's fine. The Peace Corps is there to serve the needs of that government that is inviting us. But if I may,
okay, go ahead.
Just to back up, the Peace Corps, as I said, was established by John Kennedy in 1961. And the idea was that we in America have so many advantages. And the idea was to send trained men and women overseas to fill other countries' needs, to try and help them develop to a greater scale, greater prosperity, so they can see something of what we have.
Well, what is that training involve? What kind of training do you have to have?
Well, most Peace Corps volunteers have college degrees, but they're not necessary. I served with somebody in Macedonia who had a technical degree, and she was actually a glass blower.
Oh, wow.
And she was bringing another skill set to Macedonia. And by the way, I did serve in the country of Macedonia, which is in the Balkan Peninsula, just above Greece. It used to be part of the old Yugoslavia. So they had that kind of mentality of, I'm going to be taken care of by the government. So to have an American come in and say, oh no, we need to get at least 3 bids on this program. Why? My friend is going to supply us. No. So just kind of sharing those kinds of cultural differences and being there to serve, but being there also to share, because there are 3 goals. Serve the people with trained men and women. Second one is to let them see who Americans are as people, because often when Americans go overseas, they're either military or tourists. And I think we can all agree that not everybody in America is in the military or a rich tourist.
Not everybody's going to go to Macedonia either. Most people don't even know where that is.
Fair point. And the third goal of the Peace Corps is to bring a little bit about foreign countries to people back in America and talk about the experience and talk about how they're just people. For instance, where I served in Macedonia between 2010 and 2013, about 35% of the host country population is Albanian. When they redid the borders, it just ended up an awful lot of Albanian people were in Macedonia, and most of them are Muslim. So there's a third of the population is Muslim, and about 2/3 are Eastern Orthodox Christian.
So how many people were there with you?
In my group going over, there were 38 people.
All stationed in kind of the same location, or just?
Mm-mm. The way it works is you go over and you get picked up by the Peace Corps organization over there. There are 3 Americans serving as staff over there. There's the director, the finance person, and the training and development person. They have three Americans. The rest of the people that serve each post are host country nationals. So the Macedonians actually end up teaching you what it's like to be in Macedonia, which is really, really good.
They should know, right? They live there.
So we were all together in sort of a hotel type of training setting for about 4 days. And then our host families came and picked us up and brought us back to their homes in Macedonia. And the criteria for a host family in Macedonia is they don't speak English. I know. And that they're sort of a typical Macedonian family. You don't want the mayor of the community who's going to be a cut above the normal population kind of thing.
So how do you communicate if they don't speak English?
Lots of smiles, some hand gestures, and you spend about 3 months in the host family's home, living typically as they would. You'd be surprised how fast you can learn some words when you have to.
Out of desperation?
Well, there's 4 hours of language training every morning. They're called learning development people. They get you in class and you start with words like food. You know, they teach you different food groups. They eat a lot of cabbage in Macedonia, so it was important to learn that word. So they teach you the food, they teach you the drinks. Tea is chai. Coffee, guess what? It's coffee. And they drink a lot of it. So you go through language training in the morning, and then you have a break. And then in the afternoon, there's Peace Corps training, which might be internet training, how to communicate with the post office. It might be medical training, what their expectations of you are. You know, if you can't show up to work today, you're expected to notify the medical people. If you go out of your community, you're expected to let the home office know that you're going to be traveling and where you're going to be traveling. So they keep pretty close tabs on us.
For safety,
Yeah.
That's a good idea. So tell us about the culture in Macedonia. How is it different from here, and what does it involve?
They drink a lot of coffee.
Hey, we drink a lot of coffee.
But it's different coffee. It's actually Turkish coffee.
Stronger.
Yeah, it is. Actually, the Ottoman Empire occupied the land, that whole area of Macedonia for about 500 years. So we laugh about them being Macedonian because they're really, everybody's mixed up. But what they do is they have a little pan on the stove that's actually a pouring cup, and they put a couple of tablespoons of coffee in and fill it up to wherever, and then they heat it over the stove until it's boiling, so the grounds are all mixed in, and then they pour it into a little cup about that big, and about the bottom third of it, you let it settle. About the bottom third of it is coffee grounds. And then you sip your coffee with whoever you're sitting with, and it's not uncommon to have coffee 3 or 4 times a day with coworkers or other teachers, or go out for coffee. Coffee is a really important part of the culture.
Kind of like Cuban espresso. They do about the same thing, I think. Yeah, but it winds you up for all day, though.
Yeah, another thing about Macedonia is that it used to be called the breadbasket of Yugoslavia. So unlike America, if you have a house and you have a yard, you might have some flowers or whatever. In Macedonia, if you have a yard, it's usually planted with fruits and vegetables. Tomatoes and cucumbers are very common, peppers, and that's what they live on. I mean, they grow their own food and they preserve it for winter. They, pickle it and have glass jars of vegetables during the winter.
Does that make them healthier, you think, growing your own food?
Well, yeah. If somebody brings you a bag of apples, it's going to have wormholes in it because they don't use the pesticides. But that's nature, and Americans have a different kind of standard, but at what cost? Yeah. So, plus everybody walks everywhere. They do have taxis. The taxis are about as big as this table.
With engines or
yes.
pedals?
They do have engines and cars. But remember, gasoline is probably 4 or 5 times more expensive over there than it is here. So a car is a luxury. Not every household has one like here. And people walk. Very frequently, they'll ride share. So for instance, if somebody is going from the community to the capital of Skopje, where our post was, you'll get 5 people in a car, and that's how many
in that little car.
Pretty much. I've seen people traveling with suitcases on their laps. I've seen people traveling with animals, That's,
Wow.
yeah, but it's, what happens is you start looking at life a little differently. In America, we tend to value things, how a person is dressed. In Macedonia, they'll wear the same clothes for 2 or 3 days and then change clothes because now it's dirty, and that's the norm. So you start looking around at what other people do and you adjust to the way they do it, It's not any better or worse, it's just different.
It's a different culture.
Yeah. Another thing is most homes are heated with wood stoves. So in the fall, you'll see people out chopping wood and making wood piles. It's very different. It's a lovely country. And what you learn is people are so generous and open-hearted all over the world. I know they took me in.
So what did you take out of the experience?
I was working at the municipality of Kriva Palanka, which is way up in the mountains on the Bulgarian border. So this is after training. We'd go through training for 3 months and then you go to your service community. So now you have a few, you have a little bit of language, a few verbs, lots of pointing, and you kind of have, made your way through the first 3 months. And then you have a swearing-in ceremony just like any military service does. You go to your new community and you usually have a landlord who helps move you in or whatever. Many Peace Corps volunteers live with families in their new community because it helps with language when you have to use it every day. What did I get out of it? Well, a sense of service to my country, a sense of sharing as a person to person rather than a rich tourist or a military person. I was there to serve this community. My first project that I did was renovating the firehouse, which hadn't been touched in 50 years. And these wonderful gentlemen were living in what was really a dump and hadn't been touched because the municipality didn't have any money. So I wrote what they call a small project grant, and these are American taxpayer dollars, but I got a grant for $5,000. You would not believe how far $5,000 will go over there. Before we did the grant, we had a meeting with the firefighters, and we made them all sign an agreement that they would all contribute to this project with their labor and with their skill sets, because it's a very political environment. If you think United States is a political environment, live someplace else. Because they actually, if a firefighter was a different political party than the mayor, he may not want to work on this project because it would make the mayor look good. I know, it's crazy, even though it's making their living environment good. So we all had them sign that yes, they would help. And with this $5,000, I bought laminate flooring. They ripped up the old carpet, prepared the surface, and laid it. I bought PVC pipe and tiles. They made a bathroom. I bought paint. They painted. I bought bedspreads. They sanded down the old bedsteads, which were metal, and repainted the bedsteads. We didn't have enough money to buy new ones.
Yeah.
But I bought wood, they built furniture. And each firefighter contributed their own skill set. So
That's good. It's like a spirit of community, which we are losing these
And
days.
then in 2011, which was the 50th year, 50th anniversary of Peace Corps, we had a big grand opening and invited the community. The head of Peace Corps Macedonia, the director, was there, and the mayor was there. And we did a slideshow of what it used to look like and what it looked like now. And then we went over to the firehouse and everybody toured it. And food, the food is fabulous. Like I said, much of it is homegrown, but the presentation is outstanding.
When you talk about cost, how much do things cost over there compared to what we have to pay for different things?
Well, my stipend to live over there was about $250 a month. And I could easily buy meals, well, at the grocery store. A grocery store is also about the size of this table. But I could buy my groceries. I could buy shampoo and toiletries, toothpaste, that kind of stuff over there. I could travel to Skopje or to visit another Peace Corps volunteer once a month maybe. But my job was to be in the community and interact with the people around me. So $250 a month goes a long way in this country.
One thing, everybody talks about these days is health care. What is health care like over there and cost for health care?
Well, I will give you an example of a medication that I had prescribed to me about 8 years ago in the United States. And in the United States, with insurance, my copay was about $40 a month. Over there, it was an over-the-counter medication, so I didn't have to have a doctor's prescription. I could walk into a pharmacy and get a month's prescription for $1.30.
Wow.
That's without insurance. Now, I will say that as an American Peace Corps volunteer serving over there, we had our own medical officers that would take care of us. And I was injured and tore a meniscus in my knee and had to go to the hospital. I was walking to the bus depot, and it was cold and icy, and as I was walking there, I tripped on the bridge and did a header into the railing. And I'm laying on the ground on the sidewalk, and cars are pulling off the side of the road on the bridge and trying to come out and help me. And I'm looking up at the blue Macedonian sky thinking, this has to be a low point of service. But they were going to take me to the hospital. I was like, no, I have to get to the bus station because we are only allowed to go to doctors in certain places that the medical officers approve. And I thought my health care was outstanding over there. I know other Peace Corps volunteers have complained about health care over there, but my personal experience, it was top-notch.
And how long were you over there?
I was over there from September 2010 to April of 2013. That's a little longer than most people serve. They ask you to make a commitment for 27 months. The first 3 months are training, and the next 2 years are in service in your community.
Why would someone want to go into the Peace Corps?
Well, for me, my ex-husband was in the Air Force. I have 2 children that are in the Air Force. One's a pilot and one's a chaplain. I wanted to serve. I had heard of the Peace Corps as a very small child. And I thought, you know, this is something I'd eventually like to do. So my kids were grown and gone. They both got married the summer of 2010. And September, I was off and running. A new adventure. I had quit my corporate job as an executive for Transitions Lenses, which grew from about $25 million company to a $1.6 billion company by the time it sold. And I was very, very tired of corporate America. I needed to take a step back and just reconnect with reality of life and not the insane corporate world of where's the next purchase order coming from and where's the next customer that we're going to win. So,
And the competition, and yeah.
well, like I said, it grew very quickly, and there were a lot of elbows being thrown for the next higher position, and I just was no longer interested. I'd raised my children. They were financially on their own, and it was time for me.
Yeah. So what takeaway did you bring back with you? Lifelong learning experience that somebody else might need to know?
Well, I think that sometimes we get a little jaded. Sometimes we think, oh, somebody would take advantage of me or somebody would hurt me. And that is true. There are people in the world that will hurt you and want to hurt you. You know, there's scammers and people who take advantage of other people everywhere. But in my heart of hearts, I think that most people are just people and they want to help. They have goodwill and they want you to be successful. One of the things that we did every Saturday was go to what they called the Pazar, which is the bazaar, and they'd sell everything from vegetables to socks. And I remember walking along and people trying to engage me, and I was a little shy because my Macedonian wasn't that great. And there's the pepper lady. They dry peppers on strings, and then they use these all through the winter. They'll tie onions into long ropes and hang them in the cellars. And I just wanted 3 peppers. I didn't want a whole string. It's just me. And she wanted to give them to me for free. And I'm like, no, I have to pay something. So just to give you a comparison, about $20 is 1,000 denarii over there, and that was the money. It was denars, and yeah. So for $20, you could buy a lot of stuff. I gave her 5 denarii for those 3 peppers, and she wanted to give them to me for free.
So what's the economy like over there?
One of the real tragedies of the country is that there's about 40% unemployment among young people. So they have they educate their young people, and it is free university. For students who apply and get accepted at university, they go to school for free. Now there are other expenses such as traveling back and forth and that kind of thing, but they do have free university. And one of the sad parts is when they are looking at graduation, they're looking in places like Germany and Sweden and Bulgaria. They want to go to a European Union country where the life is better. And there's a huge loss of educated talent and young people with the energy and the education and the skill set to help their own country rise. And they just don't have the economy for jobs over there.
But it's kind of the same thing here. When the kids grow up, graduate, they don't a lot of them don't come back to the communities they, grew up in. I know the economy's different here and more opportunities.
But they usually
and
stay in
stuff,
the country.
But yeah, they do stay in the country usually, yes.
Yeah. Now, one of the things about Macedonia is that Greece had a big problem with their name. Greece is like, no, we're Macedonia. That's like a county in the north of our country. You can't have that name. So they would not allow Macedonia to be a member of NATO and hence a member of European Union. So that name issue has gone back and forth for, let's see, it was established in 1991, so.
Long time.
Yeah. Many, many years. They recently came to an agreement that it would be called the Republic of Northern Macedonia. So that kind of
Gives them an identity.
gives them an identity. Yeah, the internationally, worldwide, they were known as the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. And that just grated on the nerves of the people in Macedonia. But Northern Macedonia is a name that they can agree on, that Greece can agree on, and they're hoping politically to move forward, join NATO, join the European Union. And that would eliminate a lot of barriers and help their economy.
Yeah.
What some things that you might see over there that we don't have here?
Well, the food is a little different. Flocks of sheep traversing the road. But, you drive through Crawford County and you see all kinds of farm animals and stuff, so it's not that different.
And sometimes they are in the road.
Head out. I know one lady who lived in the village of Istabania, and every morning the lady would shake her bell and she'd walk through the streets and the goats would come out from all their different homes and she'd take them up to the hills to graze. About 5 o'clock in the afternoon she would come down and all the goats would follow and they'd peel off and go home to their homes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Trained goats, that's
Yeah. Also, people are very self-sufficient when it comes to food. In the spring, you'll go to a different kind of market where the farm market is, and it's not unusual for them to buy a baby pig or two in spring, and then come October, it's a very bad month for pigs. Yeah, they would feed them all summer, and then when they
fatten them up.
yeah, and you walk into the grocery store, and in the meat department, there's pig heads lined up. I mean, the whole head, looking at you. I became a vegetarian in Macedonia.
Understandable.
Well, you get the reality of the fact that our meat comes from a live animal. It comes from somewhere. It doesn't show up in the grocery store covered in plastic.
Right.
And that was very impactful for me.
Yeah, and you could also go out and pick out your own rabbit or whatever, right? And take it with you.
Go back in the villages and the one grocery store that's there, it says meat department, and you walk outside and pick your rabbit or pick your chicken. And that's dinner. That's how they live. That's
And still alive at that point, right?
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So you pick out Fred and and I really don't have a problem with that. I have a bigger problem with American manufacturing of animals. The slaughterhouses and the miserable conditions sometimes that animals are treated. So I just choose not to participate, but I don't blame anybody who does. I like people who eat meat too. But your life changes by this kind of service. I have to laugh at people saying, America's the best country in the world, and we are. We are the envy of the world. But there are wonderful things about every country, wonderful things about every culture. I will say that there are probably 5 people in the country of Macedonia who would prefer not to be in America. Everybody else says, you know, will you marry my son and take him back to America and then we'll pay for the divorce? Oh, no, 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 no. But that's a rather common question, especially with the 20-somethings that serve.
Yeah. So, the Peace Corps, I mean, do they still need volunteers? Are they still very active? And
They do. Last year, there were 7,376 people serving in the Peace Corps in various countries overseas. About 46% of them serve in Africa, but they also serve in Latin America. That's a strong second at 18%. Eastern European, Central Asia is 13%. So there, you can go all over the world. And nowadays, when you apply, you can kind of choose where you want to go, which did not happen when I was there.
and they give you a monthly stipend depending on where you go. Right?
So you live middle of the road. You're not, you know, you're not going to starve. They don't want their Peace Corps volunteers. Besides, my community would not have let me if I said, you know, I don't have enough money to buy something. Oh, come over to our house for dinner. You know? But you live in a manner equivalent to the mid-range of the community in where you serve.
Do they have any age restrictions?
You know, the average age of Peace Corps volunteers is 28. However, after about the year 2005, 2010-ish, they started actively recruiting over 50s because they figure they've had their careers, they may be ready for a change like I was.
Yeah.
And they have some life experience to offer. And most of the cultures where an over 50 goes to serve, they revere age, unlike our country where we think our elderly population is a population to be boarded. And, you know, they're kind of a pain. In most other cultures, the older you are, the more revered you are.
Because you have wisdom and they should respect that. And yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So is there more than one volunteer per area, or how per country? How did they separate y'all?
Well, there were 38 people that went over with me. By the time we went to our communities that had dropped to 35, they didn't die. They decided this is not for me.
I can see that. It's not for everybody.
Yeah, and yeah, they assign you a community. They look at your skill set and they look at the organization that has applied for a volunteer, and they try to match you up as best they can. In my community, there was no one else living there when I went there. No other American. The closest American was about half an hour down the mountain by car, by one of those little taxis.
Yeah. But they weren't too far away. I mean, it was, 30 minutes by car.
But think about it. I mean, the technology today allows you to be in communication.
Right.
One of the first priorities is getting you a cell phone that works over here. So within a week of being in country, anybody who wanted one could have a cell phone. Some people just bought the chip, you know, or the SIM card and put in their phone if they had a phone that would work with that system. And we stayed in communication with the Central Post. We could call each other, but our goal and our job was to serve the community.
Right.
So, you know,
And are you still in contact with any of them?
I am. As a matter of fact, last weekend, a Peace Corps volunteer that I served with from California and a Peace Corps volunteer that I served with from Minnesota came in and spent a weekend with me as they were making a tour of the Southeast. So it's a very special experience. You make lifelong friends and lifelong memories. The people of Macedonia, you know, I feel like I could go back and they would embrace me with open arms. I'm very fortunate.
If anybody wants any more information about the Peace Corps, what do they need to do?
PeaceCorps.gov. You can get any information that you need there. The Southeast office for recruiting is in Atlanta. and you can contact that agency too. Or you can call here and I'll answer any questions you have. You can't tell I'm very enthusiastic about this program.
And that number is 478-836-3195 if you want to talk to Linda about Peace
Or if
Corp.
you want us to interview you, something like this that you did.
All right, well, Linda Reynolds has been our guest today, talking about her experience in the Peace Corps. Linda, we thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
We love hearing the other stories that we can't tell on here.
Yep, true. Remember, if you don't subscribe already, to pick up the phone and call us, and we'll get your subscription started. We feel that it's very reasonable. So we hope that you have a great week, and that wraps up our show for today.